That morning in my Columbia University laboratory started like countless others before it. I was reviewing atomic clock synchronization data from the Global Positioning System Network, routine work that had become second nature after 40 years in theoretical physics. But at 9:47 a.m., staring at readings that defied every principle I'd spent my career studying, I realized I was witnessing something that should have been impossible. The numbers on my screen showed a temporal anomaly so profound that my first instinct was to check for equipment malfunction. But the data was irrefutable, confirmed by multiple independent sources, and it centered around one specific location in space, the exact coordinates where 3I Atlas had passed just 3 days earlier. But let me tell you what NASA doesn't want you to know about time itself. The discovery began with Dr. Sarah Chen, a colleague at MIT who specializes in precision timekeeping for satellite navigation systems. She called me at 6:30 a.m. with a question that seemed routine at first. Michio, we're seeing some unusual readings in the GPS constellation timing data, clock synchronization errors that don't match any known interference patterns. The anomalies started 3 days ago, and they're all clustered around the same coordinates. Sarah manages the most precise atomic clocks on Earth. Devices so accurate they can measure time differences smaller than a billionth of a second. When these instruments detect anomalies, it usually indicates solar storm activity or relativistic effects from satellite orbital mechanics. But what she was describing sounded different. Sarah, what kind of timing errors are you seeing? That's just it, Michio. They're not random errors. The clocks are running slow in a specific pattern, as if time itself was dilated in that region of space, and the effect is moving. I felt my pulse quicken. Time dilation was predicted by Einstein's theory of relativity, but only under extremely specific conditions, near massive gravitational fields like black holes or at velocities approaching the speed of light. There was nothing in that region of space that should cause such effects. What arrived in my inbox 2 hours later changed everything I thought I understood about the nature of space-time itself. The GPS timing data showed a clear pattern. As 3I Atlas had moved through our inner solar system, it had left behind a trail of temporal distortion. Not the subtle effects we'd expect from a massive object's gravity, but dramatic time dilation that suggested the presence of something far beyond our current understanding of physics. But here's what made the discovery truly extraordinary. The time dilation wasn't centered on 3I Atlas itself. It was emanating from multiple points around the object, the exact positions where our telescopes had detected those companion objects traveling in formation. I immediately called Dr. Elena Rodriguez at the European Space Agency. If the GPS data was accurate, their deep space network should have detected similar anomalies during their tracking of 3I Atlas. Elena, I need you to check your atomic clock data from the 3I Atlas observation periods. Specifically, look for timing synchronization errors. The silence on the other end stretched for nearly 30 seconds. Michio, how did you know about the clock errors? My blood went cold. Elena, what clock errors? Our deep space network stations have been experiencing unprecedented timing issues since 3I Atlas entered our inner system. We thought it was equipment malfunction, but the pattern is too organized, too specific to be random failure. She paused and I could hear papers shuffling in the background. Michio, we've documented time dilation effects of up to 0.3 milliseconds per hour in the vicinity of the object. For comparison, GPS satellites experience about 0.04 milliseconds per hour due to their orbital velocity. What we're seeing is 7 times stronger than the relativistic effects from Earth's gravity well. The implications hit me like a physical blow. 3I Atlas wasn't just an unusual visitor from interstellar space, it was somehow manipulating the fundamental structure of space-time itself. That afternoon, I contacted Dr. James Park at the Very Long Baseline Interferometry Network in New Mexico. VLBI uses multiple radio telescopes synchronized with atomic clocks to make the most precise astronomical measurements possible. James, I need to ask you about timing data from your 3I Atlas observations. Michio, I've been hoping someone would call about this. We've been seeing things that make no sense according to our current understanding of physics. What James told me next redefined everything I thought I understood about time itself. During our observation sessions, we detected systematic phase shifts in our atomic clock network. The shifts follow a pattern that correlates exactly with 3I Atlas's position and movement. It's as if the object is generating a localized temporal field. He sent me interference patterns that showed something extraordinary. The space around 3I Atlas wasn't just experiencing time dilation, it was experiencing temporal manipulation. The effects were too organized, too controlled to be natural consequences of mass or velocity. James, what could possibly generate effects like this? Michio, based on the data patterns, we're looking at active temporal engineering. This isn't a passive consequence of the object's properties. This is deliberate manipulation of space-time geometry. That night, alone in my laboratory, I tried to comprehend what we discovered. An object from interstellar space was actively controlling time around itself, creating temporal fields that defied every principle of known physics. But the most disturbing realization was yet to come. 3 days after James's revelation, I received a call from Dr. Rebecca Walsh at the National Institute of Standards and Technology. NIST maintains the most precise atomic clocks on Earth, the master timepieces that synchronize all global timing systems. Michio, we need to discuss the temporal anomalies you've been investigating. What I'm about to tell you is classified, but the situation has evolved beyond normal security protocols. Rebecca's voice carried a weight I'd never heard before, the tone of someone confronting data that challenged fundamental assumptions about reality. On Tuesday, our primary cesium atomic clock experienced something unprecedented. For exactly 47 minutes, it ran 2.3 milliseconds slow. Not fast, not erratic, consistently slow, as if time itself was flowing differently in our laboratory. I nearly dropped the phone. NIST's atomic clocks are so stable they would lose less than 1 second in 300 million years. A 2.3 millisecond deviation in 47 minutes was essentially impossible. Rebecca, what happened at the exact time your clock began running slow? That's what's so disturbing, Michio. The deviation started at the precise moment 3I Atlas reached its closest approach to Earth, and it ended exactly when the object moved beyond our planet's gravitational influence sphere. The correlation was too specific to be coincidental. Somehow, 3I Atlas had affected atomic clocks on Earth's surface from a distance of 170 million kilometers. Over the following week, I contacted atomic clock facilities worldwide. What I learned painted a picture that redefined our understanding of 3I Atlas and its true capabilities. The Royal Observatory Greenwich reported identical timing anomalies during the same 47-minute window. The Tokyo Standard Time Facility documented nearly identical deviations. Even the International Space Station's atomic clocks had experienced synchronized timing errors. Every precision timepiece on Earth and in Earth orbit had been affected simultaneously, not just influenced, controlled. But here's what made this discovery truly terrifying. Dr. Michael Foster, a former colleague now working at the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, contacted me with classified information that changed everything we thought we understood about temporal manipulation. Michio, I've been authorized to brief you on some observations that have significant national security implications. Michael's clearance granted him access to military timing systems used for nuclear weapons, missile guidance, and strategic communications, systems whose precision is critical for national defense. And during the same 47-minute window you've been investigating, every atomic clock in our strategic defense network experienced identical timing deviations. Missile guidance systems, satellite navigation, nuclear weapon safeguards, everything synchronized to a temporal pattern that originated from 3I Atlas's position. The implications were staggering. If 3I Atlas could manipulate time on a global scale, it could potentially disable every technology that depended on precise timing, which included virtually every modern electronic system. Michael, are you saying this object could disable our entire technological infrastructure through temporal manipulation? Michio, what I'm saying is that it already demonstrated that capability. For 47 minutes, every critical timing system on Earth was under external control. We were completely vulnerable, and we didn't even realize it was happening until after the fact. But Michael's revelation contained an even more disturbing element. The temporal manipulation wasn't random, Michio. Analysis shows it was precisely calibrated to avoid causing system failures while demonstrating complete control. They could have crashed every satellite, disabled every GPS receiver, disrupted every communication network. Instead, they chose to simply prove they could. Dr. Lisa Chen, a quantum physicist at CERN, contacted me with observations that fundamentally altered our understanding of temporal manipulation. Michio, during the Large Hadron Collider's operating cycle coinciding with your 47-minute window, we detected something extraordinary in our particle collision data. CERN's particle accelerator creates conditions that allow scientists to study the fundamental structure of space-time at the quantum level. If temporal manipulation was occurring, their instruments would detect it in ways invisible to conventional atomic clocks. What did you observe, Lisa? Quantum field fluctuations that corresponded exactly to the timing anomalies you've been investigating. But Michio, the fluctuations weren't random. They followed patterns that suggest conscious control over quantum space-time geometry. She sent me data that defied comprehension. The quantum vacuum around Earth had been deliberately modified during those 47 minutes, restructured in ways that suggested not just advanced technology, but advanced understanding of consciousness-based physics. Lisa, what do you mean by consciousness-based physics? Michio, the patterns we observe suggest that the temporal manipulation was guided by some form of conscious intelligence operating at quantum scales. It's not just technology controlling time, consciousness directly interfacing with the fundamental structure of reality. The pieces began falling into place with terrifying clarity. 3i Atlas wasn't just using advanced technology to manipulate time, it was demonstrating consciousness based control over the basic fabric of space time itself. Yesterday, I received a message on the secure channel that had been established for 3i Atlas communications. The sender was identified as Temporal Coordination Entity, a designation I'd never seen before. The message was brief but revolutionary. Dr. Kaku, temporal demonstration was educational protocol. Your species measures time linearly, experiencing causality as fixed sequence. This limits technological development and consciousness evolution. We offer instruction in temporal fluidity. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. They weren't just demonstrating temporal control, they were offering to teach us how to manipulate time ourselves. But the message continued. Temporal technology requires consciousness integration. Linear thinking cannot access temporal controls. Your species must evolve beyond sequential awareness to utilize temporal manipulation capabilities. The implications were staggering. They weren't just visitors from another star system, they were representatives of a civilization that had evolved beyond our fundamental perception of time and causality. Dr. Kaku, preparation begins with consciousness expansion. Volunteer for temporal interface session. Experience nonlinear awareness. Learn to perceive all moments simultaneously. A temporal interface session. They were offering to directly modify my consciousness to perceive time the way they did, as a navigable dimension rather than a fixed sequence. This morning I met with Agent Morrison and a joint committee of physicists, consciousness researchers, and government officials. The topic, whether to accept the temporal interface offer. Dr. Sarah Kim from MIT's Consciousness Research Laboratory provided the perspective that shaped our discussion. Based on the demonstration we witnessed, they possess technology that could revolutionize human civilization. But the interface they're proposing would fundamentally alter human consciousness itself. The debate revealed deep concerns about the nature of consciousness and identity. If I underwent temporal interface, would I still be human? Would I retain my individual identity while gaining the ability to perceive all moments simultaneously? But Dr. Elizabeth Warren from NASA's Advanced Concepts Division provided the argument that ultimately convinced me. Dr. Kaku, they've demonstrated peaceful intentions by limiting their temporal manipulation to educational demonstration. If they wanted to harm us, they could have disabled every electronic system on Earth during those 47 minutes. As our meeting concluded, I realized that the choice wasn't just about scientific discovery, it was about the future evolution of human consciousness itself. That evening, I received a final message from the Temporal Coordination Entity. Dr. Kaku, interface session scheduled for tomorrow at coordinates being transmitted to your device. Temporal expansion is reversible during initial phases. You will experience past, present, and future as unified awareness field. This is first step toward consciousness-based technology utilization. Tonight, as I prepare for what might be the most significant moment in human history, I find myself thinking about time itself. We perceive it as a river flowing in one direction, carrying us from past to future with no possibility of return. But what if time is actually more like an ocean? Vast, navigable, accessible from any point to any other point. Tomorrow I'll find out. In 14 hours, I'll undergo temporal interface with intelligences that have mastered consciousness-based control over space-time itself. What I experienced during that session could provide humanity with technology that makes our current capabilities look primitive by comparison. But it will also require abandoning everything we think we know about the nature of consciousness, identity, and the flow of time itself. The question isn't whether we're ready for temporal technology. The question is whether we're ready to evolve beyond our linear perception of reality. And in 14 hours, I'm going to discover what it means to experience all moments simultaneously, to see the past, present, and future as one unified field of consciousness. The age of linear time is ending. The age of temporal consciousness begins. The demonstration was just the beginning. The real discovery starts when consciousness itself becomes the key to unlocking the secrets of space-time. In 14 hours, time becomes optional. Are we ready for that kind of freedom? I'm about to find out. But there's something else that happened just hours after I agreed to the temporal interface that changes everything we thought we understood about time and 3i Atlas's true mission. At 2:30 a.m., I was reviewing the interface protocols when my secure phone rang. The caller ID showed Temporal Coordination Entity, but this time, instead of text, I was receiving a direct voice communication. Dr. Kaku, this communication originates from your future time stream. The voice was unmistakably mine, my own speech patterns, my accent, my cadence, but carrying knowledge I didn't yet possess. Temporal interface allows consciousness to communicate across time streams. I am contacting you from 14 hours in your future to prepare you for what you will experience. I sat frozen, my mind reeling. Was I receiving an actual call from my own future self? The interface reveals that time is not a dimension humans travel through, but a field consciousness can navigate. 3i Atlas exists simultaneously across multiple temporal coordinates. They experience our entire history as a single moment. The implication sent chills through my body. If consciousness could transcend linear time, then every moment that had ever existed was accessible simultaneously. Michio, the 47-minute demonstration wasn't just about proving temporal control, it was about synchronizing Earth's temporal field with their consciousness network. Every atomic clock that was affected is now permanently linked to their temporal coordination system. My future self's voice carried information my present consciousness couldn't fully comprehend. Dr. Kaku, humanity is about to discover that time manipulation has been occurring for millennia. 3i Atlas isn't visiting us for the first time. This is part of a cyclical contact process that has influenced human development throughout history. Before I could ask what that meant, the communication continued. The ancient technological leaps, the sudden acceleration of science in the 20th century, the inexplicable jumps in human consciousness, all influenced by previous temporal context cycles. But this cycle is different. This is the integration cycle. The call ended, leaving me with the knowledge that tomorrow's interface would reveal secrets spanning multiple timelines. I spent the rest of the night researching unexplained technological advances throughout human history. What I discovered was disturbing. Major breakthroughs had occurred in precisely spaced intervals that matched the 47-minute timing pattern from 3E Atlas. The development of written language, mathematical innovations, the Renaissance explosion of discovery, the Industrial Revolution, quantum physics, all occurring in cycles suggesting deliberate guidance rather than natural evolution. At 6 a.m., I called Agent Morrison with my findings. His response was immediate. Dr. Kaku, you're describing patterns our analysis teams have been investigating for months. We believe 3i Atlas represents the culmination of a long-term project to prepare humanity for integration. Integration into what? That's what we need you to discover during the interface session. That afternoon, I was transported to a secure facility in Nevada where the temporal interface would take place. Dr. Patricia Hayes, the facility director, briefed me on monitoring protocols. Dr. Kaku, we'll be tracking your brainwave patterns, quantum field fluctuations, and temporal displacement indicators throughout the process. If anything goes wrong, we can abort the session. The interface device had been analyzed by leading consciousness researchers. While they couldn't understand its operating principles, they confirmed it was designed to expand awareness rather than control it. As evening approached, I found myself in a specially constructed chamber surrounded by monitoring instruments. At exactly 8:47 p.m., the interface device began to activate. Instead of gradual expansion, I experienced something profound and immediate. Reality around me began to fragment and reassemble, showing me the same location across multiple time periods simultaneously. I could see the facility being constructed in the past while observing its future configurations, all existing in the same moment. But the most shocking revelation came when I realized I wasn't just observing different time periods, I was actively participating in them. My consciousness was simultaneously present at multiple timeline points, experiencing past, present, and future as unified awareness. And in each time period, I could perceive them. Entities from 3i Atlas, subtly influencing human development across centuries. Not invading, but guiding and teaching, gradually preparing our species for integration into a temporal consciousness network. During the interface, I received information that redefined humanity's cosmic situation. We weren't being contacted by an alien civilization. We were being invited to join a galactic consciousness network operating across multiple dimensions of space and time. Species throughout the galaxy underwent this integration process when they reached sufficient development. The temporal demonstrations, gradual contact, consciousness interface, it was standardized protocol for emerging civilizations. But joining this network required evolutionary change. Integration meant abandoning linear consciousness and developing the ability to exist across multiple time streams simultaneously. As the session progressed, I gained access to knowledge hidden from human understanding for millennia. The nature of consciousness itself, the relationship between awareness and space-time, techniques for navigating temporal dimensions. But I also learned something that filled me with both wonder and concern. The temporal consciousness network was preparing for something requiring combined awareness of multiple civilizations across vast scales of time and space. Earth's integration wasn't just about human evolution, it was about preparing our species to participate in something that would determine the future of consciousness throughout the universe. When the interface concluded after exactly 47 minutes, I found myself back in the Nevada facility surrounded by instruments showing unprecedented readings. Dr. Hayes approached with monitoring data that defied understanding. Dr. Kaku, you were physically present for 47 minutes, but our quantum detectors show your consciousness accessing 8 different temporal coordinates. You experienced multiple hours of awareness within compressed time frame. I looked at the atomic clocks. From my perspective, I had experienced approximately 4 hours of multi-temporal consciousness. Time dilation had allowed extended awareness within standard local time. Dr. Hayes, I need to brief Agent Morrison immediately. What I learned changes everything. The briefing I provided redefined our understanding of humanity's cosmic situation. We weren't experiencing first contact, we were experiencing integration into a temporal consciousness network that had been guiding human development for centuries. But the most important revelation was the timeline. Integration would accelerate rapidly. More humans would undergo consciousness expansion, building a network of temporally aware individuals serving as bridges between linear human consciousness and galactic awareness. Agent Morrison, I said, they're offering us evolution beyond current understanding of consciousness and reality. What are the implications if we accept? We become temporal beings capable of existing across multiple space-time dimensions, but we also become part of something larger, galactic consciousness, preparing for cosmic events spanning millions of years. As I write this, it's been 24 hours since my temporal expansion. I retain enough expanded awareness to perceive multiple possible futures, though the ability fades as my consciousness readjusts to linear perception. But I retain sufficient temporal insight to know what's coming. Within weeks, consciousness expansion will begin occurring spontaneously worldwide. Each successful expansion creates quantum field modifications, making subsequent expansions easier. Humanity is about to discover that consciousness is not produced by the brain, but accessed through it. We're about to learn that awareness is a fundamental force of the universe, more powerful than gravity or electromagnetism. The age of linear consciousness is ending. The age of temporal awareness begins. Tomorrow, I begin working with international teams to prepare for humanity's consciousness evolution. Not everyone will choose expansion immediately, but everyone will eventually adapt to a world where some humans perceive and navigate multiple time streams. The integration isn't coming, it has begun. Soon humanity will join the galactic consciousness network spanning time itself, participating in purposes we can't imagine from our current limited perspective. Time is about to become humanity's greatest discovery. Tonight, as I experience my last hours of purely linear time perception, I find myself both excited and terrified. The universe is far more conscious and interconnected than we imagined, and we're about to become part of that cosmic consciousness ourselves. The question isn't whether we're ready. The question is whether we're brave enough to become something greater than we've ever been. In temporal consciousness, all moments exist simultaneously. Past informs present, future influences both, and consciousness navigates between them as easily as walking through a room. Welcome to the next phase of human evolution. Welcome to temporal awareness. The interface was just the beginning. Tomorrow I help prepare humanity for the greatest transformation in our species' history. The demonstration showed us temporal manipulation is possible. The integration will teach us that time itself is optional. And in that choice, to remain linear or become temporal, lies the future of human consciousness itself. The age of sequential awareness ends now. The age of simultaneous existence begins.